weather forecast almost caused Chris and I to all but abandon our plans to hike the White Mountains this weekend. Rain, rain, and more rain. However, we left our options open, fully expecting to cancel out at the last minute. Well, after raining most of all day Friday, the rain subsided by 7 a.m. Saturday morning. Chris was eager to go. Our plan for this day trip was similar to so many others that we've been on together. Well, Chris was waiting patiently for me on his front porch as I drove up to pick him up a few minutes after 7:15. Only one quick stop at Concord, at Shores, right off the highway, for a pair of breakfast bagels and a handful of chocolate bars. The highway traffic moved well as always. South Twin Mountain has a relatively long approach and a significant elevation gain. It would be an aggressive day. However, on the positive side, there would be no bushwhacking and we could have adequate daylight till well after 7:30 p.m. I figured that the extra time along with a couple of flashlights would give us some reserve. Anyway, we were hoping for the best. Along the way up the highway, I insisted that Chris ignore the drops that splattered on the windshield and instead focus on the intermittent sunshine that dried the surface of the highway. Another uncertainty was the remaining snow up north. There was little visible on the ground on the edges of the highway except for less than a half inch of overnight wet snowfall. Now, we reached a place called Five Corners relatively early. This boosted my confidence. On the other hand, a heavy steel gate blocked traffic 100 feet in from the highway, and we changed into our hiking gear sitting in the car. You see, it was drizzling now. We would have to walk into the trailhead. The well-graded road was relatively flat, and we moved quickly with little effort, marching side by side. The road was damp but well drained. A mix of birds darted about, joncos, crows, robins, and a blue jay. We covered the 1.6 miles in a casual 33 minutes. This was pretty close to my optimistic estimate of a half hour. A pavilion, a small strip of short, fresh green grass, and a well-painted green park bench, which was very inviting, were placed at the opening of the trail. A large empty gravel parking lot a few feet further. A small sign placed a few feet up the trail might have been the only warning. Hut opens in June. A last-minute check of our gear before we entered into the woods, and we were on our way. It was abundantly clear that we would have the entire mountain all to ourselves today. We stepped onto the Gale River Trail and marched forward. Chris took the lead along the narrow woods path, near level, well beaten. At this point, there was little or no sign of any snow. This first section was flat, many roots but fast. We made 2 North Branch River crossings on large stones. The next section of trail rose above a river by more than 30 feet, steeply down on our left. For the first time today, we could see what must be Twin Mountains, a long ridgeline sloping, obscured by heavy fog. Chris pressed on strongly. I used my tape recorder as an excuse to stop and catch my breath. By 12:30, we were now walking on hard-packed snow. Chris's boots punched through, dropping him to the snow above his knees, unhurt. I gratefully accepted Chris's first suggestion to stop for some refreshments here. We had marched a significant distance, but my altimeter informed me that we had gained little altitude thus far, and that we had a long way to go. The trail pitched up a few minutes before 1 o'clock. I was now paying a lot of attention to the altimeter reading. We were impatient to make progress. A few patches of blue in the otherwise gray sky encouraged us. A 3/4 inch thick layer of fresh snow covered the spruce trees and dripped down on us in enormous drops. We reached the Garfield Ridge Trail intersection, 6/10 of a mile further to the Garfield hut. White blazes marked the way. I had promised both myself and Chris that the trail would be level and easy. That now proved me to be a liar. The trail wasn't well blazed either, and we were careful. It felt a little longer than I had expected. Footing was hard and slippery. The grade angled down steeply to our left, often a concern. Hailstones pelted us. There was a further 9/10 mile to the summit of South Twin. We had driven each other along by each denying the other a break when it was suggested. Now we would stop at Galehead Hut, arriving a few minutes before 2 o'clock. We sat on a well-weathered bench under the protection of the AMC Hut's porch. The building was solidly boarded up. The boards could use a fresh coat of paint. Water dripped from the edge of the roof. There was little sun. We buttoned up as best we could with most of the gear we had. It would be a struggle to keep warm if we were stopped here for long. We hoped to rebuild our energy level before heading up to the summit. I realized that the conditions ahead would likely deteriorate. It was time to fuel up. We snapped a few quick candid photographs of each other. The hour was already late. I estimated our forced turnaround time would be somewhere near 3 o'clock. This gave us an hour to push ourselves up to the final section of trail to the summit, giving us a narrow margin for error and no significant break. I was hoping that the gentle breeze that surrounded the hut would not become a hurricane near the summit. Chris looked up from concentrating on his snack and announced, "It's snowing." Yep, the air was cloudy with snow dust, a significant amount. Daylight dimmed further, and the ridge angling up to our destination today. South Twin was jet black, presenting an unfriendly, hostile appearance. Soon the summit disappeared into a diffused layer of clouds. This was the only part of the day that I took the lead ahead of Chris, as we cut around low brush and rose above tree line. The trail disappeared very near the summit. Chris didn't believe me when I assured him that the true summit was ahead shortly and blocked at one point, going steeply up one of the highest exposed snowfields. Visibility was so low that cloud, fog, and a solid breeze greeted us at the summit. A half-inch of fluffy snow covered our backpacks when we finally reached the summit of South Twin at 3:25. We had spent all our reserve energy pushing ourselves up the last couple of 100 feet of elevation at a slow, labored pace. We were warm enough, in good condition, unhurt, well-dressed, still fairly warm and only slightly damp. The summit dome had been blown clear of snow, exposing the bright green lichen. A couple of sad-looking trail signs marked the summit. While we were standing there, the sky suddenly opened up to the sun for a few minutes, totally unexpected. Gave us a quick view of the mountains that surrounded us. We were higher than them all. I could not impress on Chris how remote this spot is. And then the sky closed up quickly. A couple of quick snapshots during that period. We left the summit at 3:37. Our footprints were the only ones visible on the entire 7 miles getting up here. We planned to follow our own tracks out, particularly on the sections of trail that had been difficult to follow on our ascent. Miles to go. We would be facing into the wind at least until we get below tree line. Chris was ready to head down, and so was I. Chris regained his enthusiasm for hiking, sliding on his behind down much of the steeper sections. He slid fast, and I chased him down the hill. It was as if each one of us had fresh batteries in our motors. An estimated 4 to 5 feet of hard snow covered the trail. We were back to Gaylord Hut at 4:12. Time was running against us. I wanted to get down, at least below the steeper snow-covered sections of trail, before darkness fell over us. Visibility was back down to 100 feet here. Daylight still fading. The AT white blazes were visible down close to the snow level. Chris was a real trooper. The hike demanded all the energy that we could produce. No effort was squandered in complaining. Our main risk factor at this point of our journey was losing the trail this far in and at this late hour. We were careful. Chris raced me, again taking a strong lead. It was 4:55. Steady rain fell on us. At 5:33, we stood on a wooden bridge. We sat on the stairs. We had snapped photos here on the way up. It would have been a real challenge to cross without this bridge. The water flowed fast and hard. When we finally reached the trailhead at 6:21, our pace had slowed down, but we never stopped. Chris and I both wanted the pleasure of lying on the fresh-painted park bench. Still daylight left. We were out of energy again. A snack. Dramatic dark clouds slid by quickly, and the sun was low. The gravel road was wide, flat, and smooth. However, Chris and I were perhaps at half speed, side by side, step by step, walking up to the car at 7:10. Big time tired, wet, and muddy. Chris drove us home.